Well, back to the future. In our first session in this afternoon, I welcome also Marco Taisch, who's Scientific Director of the World Manufacturing Forum. Welcome here in Cernobbio, Professor Taisch, and also Alberto Ribolla. We already have connected all the other guests of this first introductory session with Linda Anderson, who's founder and president of LMA Consulting Group, Cristina Oyón, who's Director of Technology, Innovation and Sustainability at SPRI, the Business Development Agency of the Basque Government, Daria Taglioni, Research Manager of Development Research Group at the World Bank, and Randy Zadra, who's Ambassador of the World Manufacturing Foundation. Let me start with you again, President Ribolla, because you mentioned, starting from the movie Back to the Future, this is what inspired you. But having seen what the work was like, and you made this call for action, can you share with us the main results and evidence in the 4 dimensions that you engaged the people to work on?
I have to say that the project was a son of the pandemic, because with Marco and the other members of the management, we designed this project in April, so in fully the first wave of the lockdown. The project was deployed starting from early June, so quite in a hurry, I have to say. And the idea was to contribute to all the stakeholders, to all the decision makers, with in full modesty, some ideas, because the decisions that will be taken today are decisions that are going to impact on our posterity, that are going to impact to our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. They're going to impact on them. So we wanted to give our contribute, knowing that, of course, we are a young startup. We are not consolidated yet as other more prestigious entities in this system, but we are also conscious that according to the composition of our community, we are a perfect triple helix model. So we have entrepreneurs, we have the universities, and we have the governments. So altogether, we think that we must do better than others, that they do not have inside this deep knowledge on all the aspects of manufacturing in general. The project was also a different aim, to give, to enlarge, to include more people in our community. So I've been working with all those projects, all the last 12 months, to be more present and to have a numerous community feeding us with their contribution. For that, we have also completely revised our site, our website, that has become our new digital home, where we can debate, where we can exchange ideas, and when we can meet at distance. So we launched the project. The project will be developed by Marco. But I just wanted to give three topics that hit my impression at the early beginning. The first one is a concept that I already said before: people. One of the 4 Ps. People must understand that their workplace, from the CEO to the last enrolled employee, they're going to change forever. So it's not an option, it's an obligation to change. The second is that policy, governments, is crucial to support the building of digital capabilities. The government, the organizations, the enterprise that will not do it will disappear, or will condemn the people living in these organizations to a slow decadement of their activity. And the last is the role of regional governments that, in connection with the policymakers at national level, they are closer to the territories, so they have to act in a swifter way, in a quicker way, to help their territory itself and the companies and the factories living in their territory. Going to the main, the key numbers of the project, we organized, divided in the four, we call them the 4P, 13 focus groups, 35 nationalities, 160 experts, 40 of them, so 1/4 from the gender balance, women, and 40% coming from companies, 35% from academia, government, and 20% also from associations, organizations, NGOs in general. That is the following slide will explain perfectly, and it's also an occasion to thank all the 13 leaders of the 13 different working groups for their effort, their enthusiasm, and the support they have never lacked in these difficult moments. The project has, in a way, is perfectly integrated with our strategic plan, because the project Back to the Future allowed us to enlarge our advocacy, so to involve more communities, to disseminate the contents, the high-level content of the project itself. We don't want to have a white paper that we put on a shelf or on a drawer just for not to be used. We want to disseminate the high-value contents, and of course we want to enlarge through the project our global network. And we want to go ahead with that, perseverance. We don't want to stop Back to the Future at this stage, and we want to go ahead. We have, as you probably understood, we have made a kind of game with the 4 P, and we want to continue. And if we want to continue with this game, the 5th P, that will be in a way anticipated at the end of tomorrow's plenary session, is going to be planet, the Green New Deal. How being respectful to a planet might also mean a boost to economy, a boost to manufacturing. And there are also other P that we would like to launch next year to our new generation, the pupils, how we can improve the life of the students, how our tuition, how can be better deployed for our pupils. The young people, how can we help young people to become entrepreneurs? So be themselves actors and generate for their friends new jobs, and also the proficiency. How we can attract people to the technical tuition, to the technical schools that are lacking, for example, for sure in Italy and in Europe. And so we want to add to Back to the Future new horizons, new ideas, and we are going to launch, as soon as this forum is finished, the next year project, the new normal, an extraordinary season. Why extraordinary? Because we will never see as many resources put into the economy as the coming few years. And we are playing with the life of our children for the coming 50. So we have to use them well. So please stay tuned.
Well, President Ribolla, before unveiling more details about what will come next in 2021, let's focus on what the results of this work were. And because, yes, it's absolutely true, this is a time when we do not just have to long for getting back from where we stood before the crisis, but we have to project the future, how we will look by, what's the final destination of the recovery, how shall we use also the different resources that are there. Now, Professor Taisch, help us summarizing, wrapping up the main evidence of the work that you did with all the experts that were mentioned.
Thank you very much, and again, also welcome to all of the attendees. What I want to discuss with you in a few minutes is to give you the main results of this exercise. But let me start from this remark, from this consideration. This is our hypothesis. Anytime there are extraordinary events, anytime there are disruptive events, as the period that we are living, there is also great opportunities. There are great opportunities for the manufacturing sector. And this has always been something which, throughout the history of the mankind, has been true. I've just put on this slide few examples on how these rapid events then later on create a quantum leap into the evolution, into the development of the people. And this is also true. We are convinced that this is also true for the period that we are living. This was the perspective and this was a challenge that we gave to our expert, to the group leader of the 13 groups. Let me summarize the results that are going to be discussed later on with our invited speakers. First, P, the people. We strongly believe that this has huge impact on the people. The COVID has accelerated what we used to call industrial smart working. People have been used to work remotely from home, and this is for sure true for the white collar. But people in the factory, the blue collar, the so-called blue collar, they have also learned, let me say, or they were forced to work remotely. This is possible because we have new technologies, Industry 4.0 technologies. But this is going to create a lot of challenges in the people. They have to adapt to new ways of working. They have to adapt to new ways of interacting. How they are going to do it in the near future, we have some best practice example happening in the last months, but we need to extend this through all the manufacturing sector in the world, and especially including SMEs. Second, the pandemic has increased the importance of specific skills. Communication skills have become more and more important. Digital skills have been important also to be able to interact with other people and to use the digital technologies. Is this enough? We don't think that this is enough. We think that people need to increase their way of being reliable, their way of being resilient to the change. Having new mindset, quick changes is requested to the people. This is, the evolution is going too fast for people not to be able to adapt. This is something also that we need to have as a new skill. Third, jobs. Job loss has been particularly affecting women, particularly affecting other group of people, other cluster of people, and young people as well. This is creating inequality in the system. We need to tackle this. We need to use this as an opportunity to rebalance not only the gender, but all the differences that we are facing in our system. And fourth, about people, is the scale of the pandemic. We need to have all the sectors to be included. There are groups, there are sectors which are having a huge impact compared to other sectors. Those sectors are in some countries. We need to avoid that this is becoming a divide for those countries, for those people. And then this is the reason why we need to have new policies. Let's go to policies, right? And let's see what governments are asked to do. Policies need to be more focused on creating new supply chain, new global chains. We are discussing about reshoring. We are discussing about creating resilient supply chain. We are discussing about making supply chain shorter. But this needs to be supported by the government. Companies, I'm pretty sure they will do their best, but they need to receive support. And there is especially something which is related with SMEs. SMEs are most of the time an incredible part of our supply chain, especially in the manufacturing sector. This is true for many countries. They have to be supported in being able to adapt to this new supply chain. And then policies are important at national level, but policies are important more and more at the regional level. There are a lot of districts in the world, there are a lot of clusters of sectors in the field of manufacturing. Regions, they have to take care of this. So national level and regional level, we think, are the best way to address policies. The third P, preparedness. This is particularly important. Pandemic has accelerated all the technological and the social development put by Industry 4.0. Those companies who were already digitalized, they were able to adapt quickly, or let me say even guarantee the business continuity. But the others, they have learned that Industry 4.0 digital technology are not just anymore something which is providing them more productivity. It's something that is providing them the access to the market. New approaches in the demand management. These are also important. If the demand is going up and down, if the supply chain is not reliable as it was supposed to be, we need to have new approaches for dealing with demand management. This is more important. And then local sourcing. it's important to reassure, to be close to the market, but it's important to reassure also to provide global sourcing. This was particularly true in the health sector, but this will become true in many other sectors. And then the role of manufacturing cluster. I already mentioned regions. We think that manufacturing cluster should have an important dimension here, and there are a lot of very good examples all over the world, but we need to extend and let me say, share these best practices. Last but not the least is productivity. Companies, with a high level of digitalization, they were able to guarantee the business continuity. This is something that we have learned. But they have done this by using Industry 4.0 technologies. It has been clear now that the fourth industrial revolution is not just the future, is the present, and we need to, let me say, extend this. The World Manufacturing Foundation is committed to spread this kind of best practices all over the world. And then last but not the least is the fact that companies, they have to reevaluate their business model. It's not only a matter of manufacturing anymore, designing product, selling product to the customer. It's a matter of new business models, remote maintenance, productive maintenance, using artificial intelligence to create new business models, controlling plants from far away. These are just few examples. There is a lot of imagination and creativity that we are asking to our manufacturing company. This is something that they have to work on. Let me conclude with the fact that these were the most important key findings, and of course we are going on with this exercise. The 13 papers will be soon available on the website. You are really invited to join them and to read them in order to be part of our community. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks, Professor Taisch, for giving us this map of things that are happening and that will have to happen in the future. Let me move to our partners and some of the major players that worked on this kind of research. And let me start with Linda Anderson. Well, Linda, welcome to the World Manufacturing Forum. And it's a pleasure having you all today. Now, we tried to sum up what the Professor Taisch and Ribolla were saying in a few questions that we do have also for you that worked on these themes in the recent months and weeks. And the first one is, what was the impact of the economic downturn and the changes that is underway on the manufacturing sector? And secondly, what was the reaction, the first reaction, the new ideas, the strategy that manufacturers are putting in place? Third, what are the main lessons, the best practices that could be used and shared to enhance and revamp a new paradigm of manufacturing? Linda, up to you.
Okay, so definitely, as you mentioned, there is a regionalization of manufacturing. We're looking at the reshoring and nearshoring of manufacturing. That it's located more closely to customers, so that we can be more resilient and responsive to customer needs. It's definitely customers are changing their mind. There's a significant volatility of demand going on in manufacturing currently. In some cases, clients have increased significantly in terms of their business. If they happen to be in an industry that's popular, like home improvement. On the other hand, there's also demand that has just, really tanked, if you will, and disappeared like overnight. So it's getting a handle on the demand and understanding how to be more agile and resilient and responsive to customer needs is one of the key findings that's going on currently with manufacturers. Did you want me to answer all three questions
Yes, please.
in a row?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, so then the second question you asked me is how is the manufacturing ecosystem reacting? And there they're looking at how do I reevaluate my sourcing network? Should I be instead of consolidating sources of supply, which we were doing for many years, we were looking at how do I become more efficient and save money and be profitable. Now we're having to take into the equation how do I also become more responsive to customer needs at the same time. And so we're having to become efficient and at the same time responsive and agile. So that's really one of the differentiators that's occurring. But we really cannot leave efficiency in the dust because we still need to be profitable and successful at the same time. And so we're looking at how do we have, instead of consolidating our sources of supply into one, which we were doing pre-pandemic, we're looking at how do we have dual sources of supply and how do we make sure that we don't have all of our eggs in one basket. We're not just having all of our suppliers in one country, let's say. We have more diversity within our supply base. And how do we utilize technology to be successful so that we can be not only efficient, but also resilient and responsive to our customer needs. So we're looking at utilizing technology, utilizing big data. Predictive analytics is becoming quite popular. If we can utilize information to make better decisions and we can predict future demand, we're going to be more successful. So there's quite a bit of conversation about the use of technology and how we can utilize that to gain speed. Because what's really in common between it being efficient and being responsive as manufacturing is the speed. And speed is the speed to recover, the speed to to reduce costs and to be efficient. So we're looking at what can we do that's going to help us be to increase our speed and that also leads us to concepts like we're entering into the age of robotics. Not that we weren't thinking about it before, but now it's becoming even more essential because how are we going to keep up with the changing needs and the skill sets required as we're looking at nearshoring and bringing manufacturing to more of a regional basis. So we're absolutely looking at the digitization of manufacturing and the supply chain associated with it, and how do we optimize inventory and have capacity and or inventory in the right place at the right time. So again, it's a happy medium here between having inventory just in time and having inventory in just in case. So we're maximizing the two.
Now, Lisa,
And
just
then
a flash,
let's see.
because
In terms of lessons learned,
yeah, please.
we have go ahead.
No, please, just conclude, and then I'll ask you a further question.
Oh,
please go ahead.
very good. Could you repeat the? Okay, all right. So last but not least, the lessons learned is that we really want to find a way to combine being an efficient and automated and autonomous manufacturer to being a resilient and responsive, and so that's a lot of what we're looking to gain in our future manufacturing environment.
Well, thank you for that, Lisa, and I'm sorry it took wrong your name at the beginning, but let me just ask this, because if we look at the GDP numbers in an industrial country like Italy, we see that those industries that invested more heavily in innovation, digitization, 4.0 business model, they were the first to react and the more resilient. But at the same time, there's a lot of concern about the level of investments looking ahead. According to some business survey recently, just this week, more than 50% of Italian companies, they're saying that they're going to invest less in 2020 and less than predicted in 2021. Are you concerned that this is going to slow down this cycle of investment, this modernization of the industry, given the pressure on reducing costs and also the financial stability and the liquidity issues that industries do have?
No, what I'm finding is that the smarter manufacturers are always looking at return on investment and how they can better leverage their assets. So they certainly, there's a continued focus on gaining in efficiencies and gaining and reducing costs. However, the smartest manufacturers understand that they need to be innovative during these times. And the ones that are innovative look at how do they produce and how do they introduce new products, new services, and how do they bring that to fruition are going to be successful. So it's, again, it's sort of the happy medium. Like, how do you bring speed into the equation so that you can still innovate at the same time?
Thank you so much, Lisa Anderson, for this. And I'm receiving different questions on these topics. I'll get back to this later on. Cristina Oyón, again, welcome to the WMF. And we just heard from also Professor Taisch that women were disproportionately hit by what's happening, the downturn, the job market crisis, unemployment, but also the role into manufacturing. Anytime there's a crisis, there are questions about, the level of participation of women in the job and work market. What's your sense of this, and what have you been working on during this project?
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here. It's a big pity having me here and not there in Cernovio. I'm very happy to share with you the interest results of the group that I have been leading during these months related to the situation of women in manufacturing and the situation of women in manufacturing during this health crisis. I think it has been a very, very good idea from the World Manufacturing Foundation, from Marco and Alberto to propose a working group dealing with this important issue. And as Marco said, effectively and unfortunately, the health crisis has not, the impact of the health crisis has not been gender neutral. So the situation of women before the pandemic in the manufacturing industry was in general quite weak. This percentage of representatives here in the group of experts around the Back to the Future project is exactly the same as the percentage of women in industry. 30% of is the share of women in the manufacturing industry, and in many cases in this 30% also we are in the lower in the scale activities, many times part-time, temporary jobs, and all these jobs are being the ones that are suffering most during this pandemic. But not only, we have seen that not only in these part-time or temporary jobs, we have seen how women are, or the impact of the pandemic on women workers have been more relevant, but also, and very worrying also, in the research and development activity related to manufacturing issues. So the production of research and development papers, publications, activity has been less in the case of women researchers. And this is really important because now that we are moving, well, important and worrying, because now that we are clearly moving towards this high added value manufacturing, digitalized and sustainable manufacturing, the STEM skills are going to be really, really relevant. Research and development is a key point for the thriving of the industry in the back to the normal, and to be in equal conditions for women. It's really important to close this gap in digital skills, in technical skills, I would say, in STEM skills, I would say.
Oh, that was very interesting, but I'd just like to ask you if, in your experience and what you are doing, can you mention any specific kind of program or policy suggestion that you think could be effective, you know, to change the situation and what you just said?
Yeah, during the of our expert group, we have identified 3 main areas where it's relevant to work in mainstreaming gender policies, and gender policies not also in the governmental or administration point of view, also in industrial strategies. And these 3 big points are we need to foster women to access the manufacturing industry, to thrive in the manufacturing industry, and to lead the manufacturing industry. So in this case, we need to overcome current barriers, like, for example, in the case of access, I have already mentioned the digital gap, but also we see that the women that access the manufacturing activity, in many cases, we lose them during the pipeline of the manufacturing activity during the professional life. And we really think that working conditions are very relevant for maintaining women in this and making women thrive in professional activity. And of course, really very important to foster women to lead in the manufacturing industry also. And we also have seen how this new situation, that the new paradigm in manufacturing is an opportunity to think out of the box, to incorporate in this new manufacturing paradigm where digitalization, sustainability is going to be key. There are also new opportunities for women, and the case of sustainability is an open area. Women that for the environment, and we are good at caring. In principle, we have a place. Also, new business models related to servitization, because it's already demonstrated that women are, in many cases, better performing in services oriented business models. So we see there an opportunity. Also, in the case of thriving, the pandemic has amplified the smart working, the flexibility in the workplace, and this is going to be very helpful for retaining women in the professional careers. And also there is a big opportunity for women to lead in the manufacturing industry when really we move towards a new manufacturing model where we should create value, but not only economic value, but also social and environmental value. And I think that there women can make a difference. And during the pandemic, we have seen how a different way of leading in some countries, and also in some companies, some companies led by women have had a different response, and in some times has been a more positive response.
Well, that's a very clear evidence, and thank you for that, Cristina. Let me move to Daria Taglioni. Now, we've been discussing many aspects of the research, the work you've done, but in a nutshell, in your view, how about the future of the new normal of manufacturing, what it will look like based on the reaction that you're seeing in the industrial sector, but also in the policies that are coming in from governments and institutions?
Yes, I apologize, but my connectivity is not good, so I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, so let me perhaps just recall where we stand with the outlook of the crisis, because this crisis is not over. So discussing the new normal will also depend on how things play out. So we have a crisis that is at the same time a demand, a supply, a financial crisis, and also a crisis where there is still an awful lot of uncertainty, which is actually what is dragging the economy most down. We know that the overall impact has been more buoyant than the initial spring projections, but there are also very divergent effects. China is actually growing this year, probably double digit. Emerging markets have been badly hit, and advanced countries are pretty much neutral on growth this year. We talked about how women have been badly impacted, but also the worst hit parts of the population are also the youth and skilled. And in general, the poor have become poorer and the rich got richer, especially those that have invested in the digital economy. The firms have been also polarized. So as we heard, the SMEs, low data intensity, high intensity of presence of people, activities have been badly impacted, and activities linked to mobility, so oil, energy, automotive, or to simply social interactions like fashion. GVC firms interesting because they were hit badly initially, but they're also the ones that have been able to rebound the most. And then we've seen a lot of facilitation of imports, but at the same time restrictions on trade and investment, on exports and investment. So this is the picture now. The policies that we've seen is, as has been said already, a call to make GVCs more resilient and robust, whatever that really means, and hopefully something different than old industrial policies of the old type. And we've seen a lot of interventions to keep jobs and SMEs going. And then an important role also for policy at the subnational level. I think the new normal will have to keep in mind the three main considerations. So first of all, the economic crisis will not be solved until when the health crisis is not solved within most countries in the world. And in order to do that, international collaborations in treatments and vaccines is fundamental. And if we get this right, we have a template for a new type of globalization that is more inclusive and more sustainable, and ultimately makes us able to cope with shocks and use the globalization as an asset. We need to be cautious with all the policies of reallocation. It's true that it's really important, but it's like basically intervening on a patient when he has a heart attack. You do not worry if he gets paralyzed to the arm, but what we'll have at some point to worry about is that this side effect. And reallocations, they have a lot of problems per se. So the debt overrun, the debt of corporates and of sovereigns, it's really important to keep in check. A possible reemergence of inflation that would bring old problems that we thought forgotten need to be done. And so what do we need in this new normal is growth strategies with high multiplier. And there are two areas that probably are able to deliver that. Policies around the climate change, the environmental economy, and obviously the empowerment of digital. So the new normal certainly will see a strong this as the two strongest engines of growth, and then we will see from there. Thanks.
Well, fantastic. Thank you for that. Randy Zadra, Ambassador of the World Manufacturing Foundation. What's your take on this, and what's the priority with all the subjects that we hit so far?
Well, buongiorno. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Yeah, my colleagues certainly outlined a number of very good discussion points that our companies, universities, and other participants joined us over the summer in this important discussion. My take on this is that initially, of course, this was a very bad scenario, and that we have not learned from past pandemics, it seemed, until now. Now, after the first wave, into the third and fourth month, things started to change. You know, as was mentioned by Marco Taisch earlier, pandemics are not new. In 1486, the bubonic plague created significant problems, and that's when Leonardo da Vinci came up with some very interesting drawings about how to deal with the overcrowded and very messy cities that we had at that time. And why do I say this? I say this because manufacturing too has begun to think about how to adapt both physically and digitally, as was discussed. For example, physically, through the work that we've done over the summer, we found that companies who manufactured more using cell-based approaches as opposed to line-based approaches fared better, because you can identify who is working within a group, you can monitor the situation. So this scenario will probably continue to roll out. The second thing I think that's important to note is that the internet has kept the world working. We're here online today. It's very obvious that it's been enabled, this event has been enabled by technology and the internet. This is the new normal. The so-called Zoom economy will not go away. It will continue to play a huge role, not only in how we use technology, but also in influencing decision makers. What we saw with the group that we had together over the summer was that technology really has now become at the forefront for executives, CEOs, and decision makers who really need to allocate capital, right? So when we talk about capital allocation now, it's important to distinguish what we found was between SMEs and large companies. Large companies have a longer term vision of how they can make the transformation. SMEs, on the other hand, are very restricted in terms of the capital that they can invest to make this change. So this is where it's very important for governments to support SMEs, critical actually, in order to have them be able to compete in this new economy and to support them from a policy perspective. But overall, we've seen now in the last 4 or 5 months a lot of what we call learning by doing. So people got their hands dirty and have tried new things in terms of technology on the shop floor, for example, and there's a move to continue that. Some of the things that we have to address with respect to digitization for manufacturing is really the discussion we have to have with employees. I'll just mention this because it hasn't been mentioned before, but the fear of being replaced needs to be addressed by management, because if you say you're going to put all robotics in one place, then you have to explain why and what people are going to do next. So that discussion is very important to have with people, with unions across the world, that the world is in fact changing, and we ought to be doing this together for the better. So I'm optimistic that we've learned how to deal with the situation. We certainly need the policy side to kick in. Companies will do their part. SMEs need tremendous support in order to boost up their capabilities in this area. And we had a really great group of companies doing our work over the summer. We have everything from large companies such as General Electric, Siemens, ABB, Festo, Bosch, to small companies and universities, Politecnico di Milano, some universities, ETS in Canada. So we were able to see, a very diverse kind of scenario of what people were doing, and we put that together in the white papers that were mentioned, and tried to highlight some of these issues for decision makers.
Well, thank you, Randy Zadra, to all our panelists. As you were speaking, I received many questions. Just to wrap it in a couple of questions for Marco Taisch and Alberto Ribolla here in the studio. Marco Taisch, first of all, there's a question from Italy, a couple of questions from Italy. And the point is this: the COVID pandemic, says one in the audience, has shifted manufacturing companies, especially SMEs, to a survival mode, with limited resources to invest. How is it possible to convince them that despite of the cost of investment, this is a must-take step? And there's another question with the same angle, which is asking, should SMEs, Italian SMEs, invest first in ICT and then in different forms of automation? What do you suggest?
I think that governments, especially in Europe, but this is also true in other countries, have understood that SME are asking for financial support. The Recovery Fund, or the Next Generation EU program, which is going to be launched by the European Union, is going exactly into the direction of supporting SMEs. There will be a huge amount of money coming to that. What and how they have to use this amount of money? I think they have to invest for sure in digital technologies. Let me say, not necessarily on the hardware, but more on the software. They have to connect machines. And then they have to invest, of course, in skills, new people. They have to, what we need to do is to do the upskilling of the people. Let me say, we have to use the current expertise of our people to be fostered. So it's not just reskilling of machines, but there's also more and more reskilling of people, and that's, I think, the direction they have to invest on.
Well, Alberto Ribolla, there's a message from Ireland, and this professional in the audience says, congratulations on getting the WMF back. Manufacturing is key to getting the EU countries going again, but how do we help political leaders to help manufacturing? I know this is kind of a tricky question. Maybe we will ask also Carlo Bonomi, who's the head of Confindustria, later on this afternoon. But what's your idea? You also are an experienced industrialist in relation with governments.
The idea is that we do have to carry on with what we're doing. So our foundation just generates and tries to disseminate industrial culture. Industry is a good thing for everybody. And we have to tell people, normal people, that is important. And then through the normal people, through the voters, we can arrive to the governments. Because if the governments will not have from one side good ideas, and from the other side the pressure of the voters, it's difficult for them to move. They have to have the two things together. So we cannot, it cannot be a bilateral connection, it must be a trilateral connection. Foundation or similar entities, the people, and the government. So we have to generate good ideas and let them drip over the people. If you convince the people, we're going to convince the governments.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Thank you also for this. And thanks also to all the panelists that we had, Lisa Henderson, Cristina Oyón, Daria Taglioni, Randy Zadra. Thank you so much for this.